TUNA Diaries Pint 2. Monday the 20th of July 2003. I know I drank most of a bottle of Jameson and had a couple of Zippy's emergency Valium when the booze actually started to make me feel alive and wanton of company. That wasn't the plan. I can't have lasted much more beyond the early evening. Despite getting up during the night with a furry gob, most systems seem to be in working order. I am downstairs for tenancy Fleminer for the first time in too long and ask if there is an outside possibility of breakfast. One would expect so, and one is never truly prepared for disappointment at that level. I attack the orange juice and make some toast. I know she drinks about 12 coffees a day, though I know not for what she requires so much caffeine when most of her tasks go undone. Once again there is no internet. I ask her to please phone the telephone company and she shrugs. I tell her that this is not a request and she eventually acquiesces. It does look like she is actually being quite pleasant to me when I hear her in action with the guys from the telephone company. It is more than inferred that they are a disgrace and the levels of shame should be some of the highest in the region. Either way they will be round within the next 2 hours. I somehow believe they will, but refuse to sit around waiting only to experience more disappointment. Before the others can tell me I can't, I take the car and drive over to the internet shop. Sunday has become Monday for the workmen and there is still no service of note. I decide to bite the bullet and make the trip to Barbate to purchase the printer. Little more than 10 meters inside the town I find an internet shop which is open. I enter and am amazed to see that there are a full array of services on offer. Beyond that, I explain my requirements to the delightfully helpful assistant and she offers to print off the first 10 pages for me as if it were her job. Ecstatic at this development, I make use of their coffee facilities whilst idly glancing the press. In the time it took me to burn my mouth on the coffee, my work was ready. For the sum of £3 I was now able to start work. Believing that positive energy should be fed upon, I head straight for an out-of-town place and pick up the printer. I opt for a model around £100 as I shall only need Bandor. The shopping experience is made stranger by the presence of a young girl behind the counter who is giving me a look which is almost saying, "If you ask me to marry you now, I will say yes." It is tempting, but there are so many logistic problems that the amalgamation is called off. Pity, though on the bright side I do have a lovely new printer. I hold it close to me but it is somehow not the same. Undeterred, I make for the car and am intent on a swift return to Zahara when I see some young lads fishing. Not that I'm the sort of person who changes their plans because they see young lads fishing, rather that the scene seemed so idyllic that it captivated me for a moment. So, I parked the car and wandered onto the beach with my printouts and my printer. There I sit, lazily glancing over the text in such a way that had I not known the subject matter I would not have been able to tell you what it was about, when suddenly the tranquil scene got the better of me and my eyes closed. I don't think much time had passed when I awoke, dribbling into the sand and minus the printer. They thought better of the first 10 pages of Fat Charlie's masterpiece, and, thankfully, thought it too risky to try to take the car keys from my pocket. I'm surprised I didn't leave them in a nice stone with a few tips on handling in their native tongue. Unfettered, I return to the shop, see my lover again and purchase the exact same printer from her. Now she thinks I am some type of weird stalker and this time the look is less warming. I can't be bothered explaining what has happened, so allow her to think like this. I may even return in the next couple of days to buy another. Heading straight back to the chalet I find little evidence of my colleagues who appear to have taken their pain to the beach. I brew up and start to have a proper look at page 1. I am now completely sure that optimism has entered my time frame in the amount I hope to get through per day. It didn't flow or make any sense. Indeed, one gets the impression that the whole thing is put together via a series of copy and paste actions that are interspersed with snippets of text that lay claim to a spiritual link between the plants and a celestial being. It didn't make any sense, nor was it clear what the point was at any time. On the rare occasions that any conclusions were reached were immediately rebuffed within a page. After reading 5 pages I was in need of newer rotten. I hadn't actually done any physical work and had no idea on how to turn this meaningless piffle into a well-constructed argument to detail the flora and fauna of the province of Malaga. The only way seemed to bin Charlie's effort and start again. That boulevard appeared to offer the chance of certain death and was immediately discarded. My plan was then to offer changes whilst maintaining the essence of the essence-less text. The news that we were online spread rapidly round the edifice. Suddenly, Benny simply had to send an email. followed by Zippy and Gore, the latter wanting to do a transfer on his fantasy football team. I offered them my mobile to phone Fat Charlie and ask if it was okay for me to stop my work. Within seconds they were moaning about there being no need for that kind of attitude. Despite not doing much, I had read a good section of the first part and believed I was capable of getting something out of it. I was sure that the others would soon bore of the homestead and hear the call of the beach. How incorrect was I? Flemmer is in fine fettle and has offered to prepare a peller for all and sundry, and has them in the kitchen chopping and cutting things. When the noise level from the kitchen finally permits me to think, they take up residence by the pool, discovering the enormously hilarious game of standing by the window, knocking and ducking quickly whilst I investigate the strange noise. This causes hitherto unseen levels of mirth in the minds of my friends, clearly comic genii, and I fail to appreciate it. After 30 minutes of this I suggest that their time might be better spent fucking off and dying. A grave mistake, as now their hilarity knows no bounds. Bits of shellfish appear mysteriously in the air and the laughter is, deservedly, deafening. After 7 pages, I decide to give up, hoping they will be deported or something in the late afternoon sun, which will help me continue. I take my miserable ass to the pool area and pour myself a glass of sparkling water and smile as Benny explains, in bad enough Spanish to make it hard to understand, yet in such a way that maximum pain is derived, that I drank a bottle of whiskey and took Valium yesterday due to the unrequited nature of our love. Our love refers to mine and Flemmer's. I make a comment that maybe I did it because I loved him, but only she got it, and I can't say it made things any better between us. After that I was berated for drinking water. Then I noticed Benny heading towards indoors. He assumed that I was taking a break and that the computer was his. I knew he didn't care about his email. He wanted to sneak a look at what I was doing, as it was eating him alive not knowing. All the documents I had been working on were password protected that only the system administrator could override. I knew he would have a pop at trying to crack the code, so simply chose Benny as the password, abusing his own arrogance to the extent that he would never consider his own name. Well, it sort of makes sense to me. After 10 minutes Benny comes back and pours himself a drink. I inquire as to whether his experience with the computer has been a successful and profitable one, and he gives me a look then suggests I go bum Fat Charlie. A couple of minutes later Flemmer is accompanied by Gore and Zippy, who are helping her carry an enormous pellet dish as if they all belong to one immense happy family. I appear to be choice number 4 in the house as a potential dinner guest for her, so, taking more water I sit at the table before they can tell me I'm not invited. She makes a large issue of the help she has had to make this dish, which in turn means that I did sod all. When will they get their heads round the fact that I'm here to work, not play? The peace is shattered by the news that Dave and John will be here tomorrow and are taking the other 3 to Algeciras on a little job for a couple of days. That should buy me some time. Benny moans and reminds us that he has to be in Malaga for his TV show on Saturday. The thought of Benny leaving us for a few days certainly helps me fall back into holiday mode. With this news, I decide to take the afternoon off and catch up on my tan. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and this very good, typical dish from the shores of Valencia is given good treatment by the Argentinian hands in the kitchen. It is suggested that I muck in with the washing up. I laugh this off or often tell her the day she helps me with my work I will help her with hers. The tacit nature of this comment has me pegged as rather a bad lad indeed, but I care not. She will have to spend 2 days alone with me. Maybe I'll be nice then. We continue the party after dinner and invite Flemmer to take a drink as our guest. Thankfully, she declines and retires to her chores. It is not long before we bore of the pool and head down to the beach. Phoning young Jim Stribari, his new moniker, we ask him if he can bring some beer and an ice box to the beach for 50 bills. He tells us that there is an ice box in the house and he will see us in 30 if that is acceptable to our diaries. My word it is, I respond, leaving my potential love elbow deep in suds. The beach is fun. We play drinking keep-up tennis and receive some funny looks from respectable people 10 years younger than us. The idea of the game is that if you miss a shot you have to drink. Zippy and Gore find that the beer warms very quickly and theatrically fail to make contact with the ball, whilst Benny and I believe, very wrongly, that Connors McEnroe is on the centre court. Jimster Sonnington, as he is now known, has not pulled a muscle with the ale and we are soon dry. Heading to the Kiringuito, we dump the ice box and order ice colds whilst appreciating the view. Zippy informs us that he has something to show us. He has sewn a little compartment into his trunks, which keeps his drugs dry whilst he swims. This is marvelous, we announce, though feel compelled to tell him that I and Gore are in possession of a bag. He does not care for this information, claiming that these drugs are only for those who consider his work to be of a good nature. With this new state of affairs, we applaud his intelligence and prepare to cross another loo off the world toilet list in which I have pissed in on my third visit. We are soon in fine fettle and holding court for the enticed listeners of the bar who are bombarding us with questions about our homeland and other topics of differing levels of pertinence. We get a round in and will take nothing back in return. We learn a new word which may be the pinnacle of linguistic pointlessness, ispetero, the bloke in charge of putting sardines on a stick. It has a verb too, is better. Sometimes there are so many words it is hard to know what to do with them. Despite looking unkempt, we decide that the town is worthy of our continually improving persiflage. I am convinced this drug is like snorting a thesaurus. In town, we find a bar that is neither inside nor outside. So, we sit in the area we believe to be not inside. It is a rather delightful place as time appears to have found its way to nearly 9 o'clock. There are not too many people in the place, though once the after-dinner crowd come in it will be party time. I am quite enjoying myself until the harmony is shattered by a linguistic offering from another table. It went something like this. Hey, where you guys from? Luton. I ain't heard of that place. Where is it? Bedfordshire. County town. Oh, my God. You're British. Indeed. You must be in town for the cartography conference. Eh? Never mind. We assume you are from the United States of America. They reel off some place names that mean nothing to me, nor are attained. We bid them a pleasant evening. Hoping that to be the end of it, Zippy goes to the labs and I return to my drink. Hope springs eternal. So, do you guys, stay here? We are summering in the vicinity. Where do you recommend we go at night? The options are but too many. I wish to appear as rude as possible, but not in an easy way. My rudeness is erudite, the product of dedication. There are lots of other places I am sure you would enjoy. Their party is for 2 girls who are worth it according to Benny, 1 who isn't according to all of us, and some big-haired luminous teeth jock who gets killed in the first 20 minutes of a horror film just before he gets his hands on his sweetheart's bristles. The ugly one and the jock are doing the talking. The other 2 don't seem to feel the need to ask what to do in a town that takes 7 minutes to walk from one end to the other. They can probably work it out. Benny goes over to them and they smile. He kindly tells them he is a TV star and is soon purchasing them a drink. The others believe that this is an invitation to join our table and they are upon us no time. I get the bag off Zippy and try to return a nicer person. Now, with my nipples acting like wind turbines, I must surely be able to stand this chaff for a small while. Especially as Gore brings me a fine Cuban rum and coke. Cuba Libre. I say, but the comedy is lost. So, we were in Cadiz the other day. That place is so, you know. And we want to go to Morocco. You know there is, a ferry from near here. Is it a catamaran? Eh? You said it was like a ferry. Yeah. And then we can go there and buy some hash. You don't know where we could get hold of some, do you? I love smoking pot. I am sorry, Lord. I tried but I can't. Who invited you to ask us questions? Why are you here? We have no desire to talk to you. So, please, can you, vacate our, table and, fucking annoy somebody else? We were only trying to be friendly. And by the way, we don't make fun of how you speak. Why do people who can't get any friends always want to be friendly? You can't make fun of how we speak because we speak properly. They go to another table disgusted, and then become more so, when their friends refuse to leave Benny. The rest of us laugh. A Canadian lad with his Spanish wife tips us the nod and compliments our beratement capacity. A drink is offered though we make it clear that this is not necessary. We see our new enemies leave and open a car. They take a bag out and close the vehicle. Then they cross the road to another bar, after giving us a sign that we should, I believe they say, swivel. We have another couple of drinks, and I have a marvelous idea. I phone Jaime. I can't be bothered with silly names, I am too inspired. I ask him if he can get hold of some pink paint and a brush, and meet us outside our current watering hole. He says pink could be tricky, though guaranteed a similar tone. Within 30 minutes he was with us. Failing to contain the hilarity, we opened the paint and wrote wankers in huge letters over their new beetle. When we compose ourselves, we take a vantage point near the side of the road and send Jaime in to find the owners of the vehicle. After 10 minutes, he comes out with the pair looking bemused as they inspect their vehicle. Everything seems to be in order with their vehicle, which stood next to another that some fool had painted abuse over. They returned to the bar as we started crying with laughter, running into Jaime's taxi as the owner of the defaced Beetle realized what had happened. We texted Benny and awaited a well-earned nightcap. Tuesday, the 21st of July 2003. I awoke this morning with a level of fear that I had not experienced for a decent while. I began to sweat as I was sure that Dave and John were only visiting with the intention of spying on me. I had done very little work since I had been here, but they had to comprehend that the environment was not convivial for the task bestowed on me. Neither am I trained in this work, plus the internet connection has only been up for a day. These conditions are intolerable. I dragged myself out of bed, feeling sufficiently fuzzy to not know what the body was aching from. I considered the fact that this was the hangover of an expert, someone who knew how to avoid the pitfalls of the next day. My stomach didn't ache and my head was in some way detached, but physical pain was almost non-existent. As always, I was under the misapprehension that a shower and forcing small pellets out of my rectum would make things tickety-boo again. On the living room table was evidence of the previous evening's carnage. That stale whiskey smell that reminds you of old men was prevalent to the extent of having tenants' rights. Surely, if booze smelled like that the minute you open the bottle, this would be a much safer world. God knows what has happened in the study where my work takes place looks like the work of the Marx de Sade, so I take the laptop back into the living room, assuming that the room smells like my breath anyway, and I hook up. If Fat Charlie's attempt at explaining the delights of the Malagan province with a clear head, with a fuzzy one, it was an even more thankless task. I fall back onto the sofa and notice the leftovers from Zippy's supply on the table. I feel the need to get as much done as possible. If I can get up to 20-something pages and they can't say anything that would be more or less on schedule, then they couldn't say anything. This has not been my fault. The problem is that to get to, say, 25 pages I would have to do 11 today. John and Dave could turn up at any time, but I reckoned I had at least until 4. That meant 5 hours for 11 pages, a little less than 30 minutes per page. Hardly the sort of work rate that Dickens used as inspiration for hard times. However, poor Stephen of the Pleasure Beach never had Zippy's stash to get him to the mill on time. I ponder this comment as Gore's golden snorting implement enters my nose, this time justified by being an aid to work. After an initial sweat, the powder began to work its magic and I flew through 3 pages, making inspired corrections. As quickly as it had come though, the inspiration disappeared, leaving me once again incapable of comprehending even the simplest construction. I got together another line and was about to get my nostrils round it, when Benny appeared and called me a junkie. What sort of person was he? How could he manage to make me feel so bad for doing something he abuses with frightening regularity? I now feel quite dirty as he inquires about the presence of hot coffee in the kitchen. I tell him that I think there should be and he appears pleased with this scenario. As he pours himself a cup I snort and he puts in an order for a line as well. In his own eloquent style, I can't be asked feeling better only to feel worse again tomorrow. The middleman, one would guess, is no longer needed. I feared that the presence of Benny would hinder my work even further, but his exacerbated energy levels meant that he couldn't stand to see the place in such a state. After a xenophobic call after our help, "Where is that slut?" he did something that has never been seen in the history of our relationship. He got out the dustpan and brush, intent on giving the place a once-over. This almost unimaginable sight inspires me to crack on, and by the time Mr. Sheen is doing the rounds, I have gone through 10 pages of Fat Charlie's book, the most in one sitting up to the point of writing. Benny flops onto the sofa and requests another line, proudly holding Minute Maid and 2 very clean glasses. Zippy and Gore arrive too and are told not to make a mess, which causes their faces to register confusion. I save the good work and am easily convinced by the merits of a swim. Allowing the water to run till it comes out ice cold from the shower, when my nipples tingle from the cold water and not the Coke, I'm ready to dive. I do a length underwater and am presented with a crisp glass of white by Gore as I reach the surface. Sipping casually as I prepare for the opulence of the next line from the comfort of the swimming pool, part of me wants to leave all this behind and take Flimena to some paradise. As the note hit my nose, I made another promise to myself to leave all this behind, as soon as it was feasible and didn't cause any social ruptures. With the poolside frolics, no one heard Dave and John arrive, and the pair were left at the door for a good 5 minutes. The aim of their visit is to give me some free time, or so the whisper on the street goes. I was going to make sure that they would be aware of the magnitude of my task and how much work I was getting done in these most difficult of circumstances. Dave and John joined the party in no time, changing into their beachwear in the little cabin near the pool. They didn't seem to be dressed as spies, but I was still very far from trusting their appearance at the house. Dave was more than keen to show off a little trinket he had picked up on his travels. It had the look of a silver bagel that opened in the middle, in which 32 lines were expertly stored to Dave's cutting ration of 8 lines from a half-gram bag meant that 2 grams were constantly on hand. This, for these boys, was more at a par than a sit-down meal. Before paranoia became too close a friend, I wanted to leave some evidence of my work, and so commented upon this to Dave. Dave said he had no idea what I was talking about and had assumed we were all here on our jollies. I offered a half-hearted come on, but he insisted. Maybe Charlie did not want even his closest cohorts to know of his passion, and, if Charlie had sent him to spy, he would hardly claim to be bereft of knowledge of the subject, or would he? Dave suddenly was overtaken by a strange look on his face. He had just realized that 32 was not divisible by 6. This made his contraption, in his eyes, practically useless, and was suddenly ashamed to have it in his presence. I thought it was rather sweet and hoped to pocket it, should he continue not to care for it. Drinks are a bit thin on the ground here, so it's a quick sniff to the Kiringuito. Here our custom is initially the cause of much joy, though as Dave and John begin loutish recounting of their past, this emotion soon turns to displeasure. Although there are 6 of us, and consumption is hearty, we make the place look unappealing and therefore are making people think twice before they stop off. This means that the place could have 4 times as many people in drinking twice our total easily, plus the furniture would probably survive the jaunt. I have never really socialized with Dave and John in a session since before, and I fear I shan't enjoy it. Dave is a really nasty fucker with a penchant for violence rarely seen so far from floodlights. John is slightly more civilized, though the context of the situation doesn't allow for much. I suddenly feel that I want to tell people of my Galician blood, in order to disassociate myself from these people, but I know deep down that this, whilst not being where I belong, is where I am stuck. Gore seems to be lapping up the fact that not even the biggest glass in a house could contain all the excess testosterone spilling over, and talks of violent encounters with the same delight as the others. Benny begins some bullshit tale that we know is a lie as we were there, and the others do because it is so implausible. Zippy just nods and hums when there is a pause in the sentence. More people think better of the establishment. You might as well have a sign up saying that the British are in residence. At one time, I might have found this sort of presence exhilarating, though now I am filled with a desire to be somewhere else, anywhere else, walking hand in hand along the beach with Philly men, enjoying the simple pleasure of being in the presence of someone you love as time stands still. Hold on. I have had a bit too much of this stuff. Who said I was in love with her? Had to keep control of my thoughts. Still, love would be nice. Things take a turn for the worse when a group of German surfers decide that the unwelcoming glares from Dave are not enough to put them off a post-wave quaff. This is particularly worrying as one of Dave's pet hates is those of Germanic origin. These lads are young, fit and lithe, probably in a clean fight they could kick the shit out of us, and I hope they do, but it won't be a clean fight and I won't be around to witness it. As they order their drinks they take a table as far away from us as humanly possible. Dave makes a face like someone has put vinegar in his underpants and retires to the toilets. Maybe he will come out feeling love and respect for these people. I wish I had a couple of these I could slip him. He exits the toilet and commences a roar. We are the first to hear it, though it is not for our benefit. Sound bits below. The problem with the fucking Germans is. Here he stops awaiting a reaction, but doesn't get one. He repeats the sentence with extra volume. I look over at the bar staff with a look in my eyes that I hope transmits an apology, though I'm sure that it falls short. These German guys look like good fun, probably having more to offer than my learned colleagues now that Gore has adopted thug mode in favor of his normally delightful self. Dave continues is that they are so fucking boring. Just look at them. He points at them, scorning their mere presence in the bar. I'd rather go out with them, try surfing, maybe learn some German. I have a soft spot for the place. After all, me and Julia spent some marvelous moments there. Maybe they are from Cologne. We would have so much to talk about. Ooh. What's the name of that bar on the corner of the bridge? You know, near the cathedral. There they do an excellent altar bells. Oldest cathedral in Germany, you say? They ignore Dave in the hope that he will refrain from further comments. They are wrong. God, they spoil Malaga. And what they do to Malaga doesn't bear thinking about. Send the fuckers home. I remember stories now about Dave having a few beers, taking some mates down to Rocks and Tordel March, where more Germans were found in the Malaga area, and running amok in shops selling Deutsches Brot and Olisches beer for the Germanic settlers, then taking out their frustration on any males in the vicinity. All rather ugly, as this was about to become. Hopefully, the Germans would stand, take their pride with them and walk away, but why should they? Because this was a cruel and hideous world. I used sleight of hand to wander inside Zippy's jacket and remove a couple of wraps and a bag of skunk. One of the Germans questions how they can be boring if they are doing the same as the English, sitting in a bar and drinking beer. It is a good response, but represents only their desire to go down fighting. I am away on my feet as I hear sounds that appear almost comedic as I try to get as far away as possible from the carnage. The worst part of it, that when the police come, Fat Charlie's influence will probably end up with the Germans being charged. I am soon halfway down the beach and fondling the drugs in my possession. I am clearly determined to stop taking them as soon as a convenient moment presents itself. I am going away from the leisure zone and make good my path to the road, hoping to find somewhere there to take liquid refreshment. I pondered the reputation that we must have in this still sleepy town, and wonder why the British don't understand why some people feel little love for them. The first place I found was reminiscent of our first night in the town. Although the welcome mat was out, the full sentence was "You are welcome to leave." Whilst not doing just that, I rang Jaime and asked him to take me to Antonio's. At least there I could have a drink and enjoy an only slightly infuriating chat. Jaime came swiftly and I offered him the chance to share my benevolence for the evening, but he declined, saying that he had a date. I let the subject lie there, understanding why he would not care to spend his free time in the company of people whom he has only seen wreak havoc in his local environs. When I get to Antonio's, neither he nor his delightful wife are in residence. I am too high still to drink alcohol, so I make do with a coffee and sparkling water, which I take onto the terrace. I wish I had something to read, though I am aware that I wouldn't be able to concentrate. So, I do what people who are coked up tend to do when they are high and want to give off an air of being quite the opposite, by embarking on a series of exaggerated knee movements and teeth chattering. I really have no idea what to do. I wish I could be with Philomena even if reciprocation is not an issue. Thankfully, our Lord God Creator offers me the chance to make amends for my friend's rudeness by sending me two of the Germans. They don't see me as they sit, looking slightly disheveled after their run-in with Dave, so I prepare my lines vocal and offer them the hand of friendship. This wasn't going to be another Versailles, more like Rome as the union of young Europeans forged through boundaries. I told them I was deeply sorry about my friends. I pronounced the word as if to make clear a certain amount of sudden disassociation, and would be delighted if they would accept a drink by way of an apology. This would be perfect. We could have a night out together, we could become great mates and then keep in contact on the messenger. I could return to my favorite haunts and they could show me the hidden treasures of their city. They told me not to worry. I said that I simply insisted, but their indifference is unwaning. Why would they want to spend time with me? I was only the coward who split at the first sign of trouble. They probably lumber me in with the French or the Italians, but it's not like that. I am a lover, not a fighter. I don't want to run, but I don't want to hit. It is complex. Finally, the drugs subside and the coffee makes everything right. I glance over to them again and think you're lost, and was already glad to be rid of the boring wankers. I did, though, require company. I found Jaime again and asked him if there was a whorehouse in town. He informed me that that was a question to be asked in a quieter tone than mine, and that most villages over 80 inhabitants tend to boast a brothel. By the way, the one in Sahara, his town, was revered throughout the province. What is it about Spaniards that they have to have over-the-top civic pride? You can understand it if a region produces particularly good olives, but a brothel. It's not what you'd put on the council's website. I ask Jaime to collect me again, and he says it will be a pleasure. I am not so sure how much of a pleasure it will be for him, but we are soon in the vehicle. I will need some extra cash for the evening, so we hit the cash point. I check the balance on the 10 grand that Charlie gave us and am pleased to see more than 5 tons still waiting to be spent. It's early and the machine lets me have 500 but no more. I have another couple of cards and consider trying to clear the thing out so that unhappy holiday makers will be left without cash. Then I wonder how I became such an evil swine. Within 10 minutes we are in the car park of the brothel. I ask Jaime to wait and How inquires how long I shall be. I reiterate that I have no intention of fluid spilling, just that my friends do not please me at this current time and I know no one else, therefore I shall have to rent company. That way, they will be obliged to laugh at my jokes and consider me interesting. Jaime asks me if I am happy and if everything is all right, and I tell him that of course it is. How couldn't it be? Inside I am instantly treated like the most appetizing sexual morsel on this planet. Literally everyone wants to sleep with me. I have no time for tittle-tattle with the taximeter running outside, the misbegotten notion that this fair formed part of our group's little arrangement being far from true, so I head straight to the barman and offer my proposal. I require the services of someone capable of convivial conference on a variety of subjects. I should not care for someone with a tabula rasa in their cranium, and while expect a modicum of servitude, I still wish for a certain level of intellectual tennis. The barman's manualesque response of "Quay" suggests that my lexicon is in need of simplification, or I should take less drugs. He seems to only have a problem with the fact that I don't want to have sex with her. He finds my requests strange, but mentally stumbles on the reason part. When I offer him a 20 tip is when we actually begin to speak the same language. He sends me Rita, a Brazilian from the northeast Sertão, the semi-arid interior. She says as she says she never knows what to say. I ask her if she wants to earn 3 ton by accompanying me, laughing at my jokes, going to a nice restaurant and trying to make the most of evening, culminating in us not having sex. With this she glances over to the barman, who simply shrugs his shoulders in confirmation. What is it with the people in this place? Why are they so obsessed with sex? She says she would be delighted but will have to change first. I agree and comment that she does like a bit like a pewter, then say that I generally know what to say but often say the wrong thing. She replies by saying that at least I don't look like a client, which I like. I order a beer while she changes and send a quick text to Jaime, who is happy reading his football daily and listening to the never disappointing sound of the meter ticking over. 5 minutes later we are in the taxi and heading to the town. The layers of makeup have disappeared and she is wearing a simple, low-cut t-shirt and jeans. She looks about 100 times sexier now than in her drawers. Very strange. She is very pleasant company indeed. She has a master's degree in geology and is considered something of a specialist back home. Back home, though, is a land where knowledge of geology is not highly prized, when it is accompanied with a feminine nature even less. So Rita came to Europe on the back of a load of false promises and lies, and, although she earns more than her old university director and can send money home to her impoverished family, she still has wake up every morning. I suddenly feel like part of a huge conspiracy and, quite to my surprise, a tear forms in my eye. She tells me that I'm one of the nice ones and suggests we change the subject. My tears aren't for Rita, they are for all of them, because it would be inevitable that Fat Charlie's business interests did not include prostitution. We have dinner and then go for a drink and a dance in one of the Caringuitos. Now they are full of fresh faces of the new holidayers, enjoying that first night as the ocean air carries them into heady fun. I watch them enviously, the couples, the groups of friends, and think how lucky they are to be honest, decent people. Then I remember that I hate them all and call Jaime to get Rita home. She thanks me for a pleasant evening and is whisked off into the night. I opt for the walk up the hill, but before doing so, take a fat line off the top of a Renault Clio. I have to thank Rita for that. I had completely forgotten about the drugs in her company. Wednesday the 22nd of July 2003. I am awoken by the sound of people getting ready to leave on autopilot. My mouth feels disgusting and I entertain the idea of a quick brush, but the toothbrush is nowhere to be found, probably an example of my friend's well-developed sense of humor after my disappearance last night. More rest is needed for yesterday's excesses to be forgotten, but the other are off on a job. I do not know or care where. Before going to bed I made sure that I took the keys to the BMW with me. I knew Benny thought he could have it. Sure enough, there was no knock on the door. Hey? Chicken shit yellow bender. Car keys. He held out an outstretched hand. Morning, Benjamin. What car keys are these? I do hope he gets angry. The Beamer. Come on. I'm in a hurry. I'm afraid I can't give you them. That vehicle is registered in my name. Besides, how will I get about while you are away? It is out of the question. Benny hasn't got time for this. Look, Graham, stop being a fucking asshole and give me the car keys, please. On one condition. Name it. That car is registered in my name and is worth around 50 grand. You give me a deposit of 50 grand and you can take the car. You can have the money back on satisfactory reappearance of the vehicle. I smile. He aches. You have 5 seconds. Or what? Let's phone Charlie. Let's see what he says. Fuck you. That's what he'll say, so that's what I say. Fuck you, Benny. Close the door, please. What are you shagging, Fat Charlie, or what? He responds in a voice that he knows is too loud. If Dave or John heard a comment like that, Benny's precarious tenure on this earth would become even more so. As he exits the room, I offer the middle finger as an offering of war. I try to return to my sleep but can't. When I hear them leaving in Dave's rather roomy 4x4, it still makes me laugh, as Benny will be in the back seat and he will hate that. I wander downstairs to see Philomena standing in the middle of what could be seen as an NSPCC ad campaign, but is in reality our living room. I offer to help her, but she says that would be counterproductive. She would have to go behind me with the dustpan, thereby doing twice the work. She did concede that it was a sweet offer, and if I could put some coffee on, that would be an immense help. I can't work her out and don't intend to. I just thank God, or Ali or the Nesquik rabbit, she's not in a funny mood. I swill some orange juice down and realize I am in quite a healthy state. I suppose I have our Lord the Creator, or the devil, to thank for the fact that I rarely suffer from hangovers. Well, not as bad as others anyway. Normally, I can manage to get through the day without worries. In the time it takes me to struggle with the coffee, Philomena has more or less given the living room a hello magazine finish and is after some hot water for her mop and bucket. I manage to make a mess that defies physics. Less liquid than seems to be necessary for the process of coffee making has remained in the cafetiere, with liters of dark brown liquid covering the surfaces. She takes one look at me and transmits despair, telling me to take a seat in the living room. She is being very pleasant at the moment, but I never know how long this state will last for, so I decide to get on with things. I suddenly become aware that I have an uncontrollable urge for that summer favorite gazpacho, excellent for an instant hit of vegetables to rejuvenate a dispirited system. The chances of there being ingredients in the house were minimal, and the chances of me being allowed to make such a potential disaster even less, so I reached for the keys and jumped in the Beamer. I head into town to find a suitable place, avoiding Antonio's for no particular reason that I can fathom. In front of his place is another restaurant which looks capable of granting my request. Entering full of the joys of spring, I engage the kindly owner in a summary of my requirements. I ask him if he has gazpacho. He says he does. A good start. I inquire whether he sells food for consumption off the premises. He claims this is a possibility. Not perfect, but not worrying. I tell him that I would like to purchase his entire stock of gazpacho, 11 servings, and take it home with me. This, it transpires, is impossible. I beg him to elaborate as to the reasons why such impossibility should surround this simple transaction, and he replies that he has other customers to think of who may want gazpacho. If he sells it all to me, they may be disappointed. I point out that it is for sale and the aim of his business is to sell the greatest amount of food and drink possible. He concurs with this, though mentions the ethics of my request. I labour the point by asking him if he had an Audi showroom which contained 11 vehicles, would he refuse to sell them all to one customer? This, in his eyes, was an entirely different scenario. In any case, I don't have a receptacle for the transportation of the produce. I said I thought he would give me his. He wouldn't. We recap. If I came back with 10 friends, he would gladly serve me 11 portions of gazpacho, with which I could do as I please as long as I have a suitable receptacle. I let him know that I intend to be back, and soon. Outside in the street I find a shop that sells more or less every product ever to be made from plastic. I furnish him with the knowledge that I require a recipient that will hold 11 servings of gazpacho and comes with a sealing lid. He tells me he is closed, despite it only being 1 hour afternoon. I ask him what I can do and he doesn't seem overly concerned with the solution of my problem. The 2 containers, which I can see, cost €1 each. I offer the man 10 for the pair and suddenly the shop is open. I now have my containers. Now all I need are 10 friends. There are a group of lads hanging around in the street, looking as if they are up to no good. Strange the double standards one has. I ask them if they would like to earn 5 each for simply sitting at a table. They gave me a strange look but agreed, knowing their superior numbers would be able to help should the situation get sticky, obviously adherents of Russian military policy from the pre-revolution days. We enter the place and join 2 tables together. Down we sit and I order 11 servings of gazpacho. One of the boys says lovely, and I have to inform him that should he touch the liquid I will have him shot. Trust me to get culinary aware thugs. The boys help me to put the cold tomato soup into the containers. We close them and ask for the bill. $27.50 for the gazpacho, 2 for the bread, which I take as well, and 50 European p-tip for matey boy. Outside, I load up the car and give the 10 lads a 50 note. The divisions will have to be done on their terms, maybe some will lose out, maybe not. Either way it's a valuable lesson that they have to learn and I feel good at being able to pass on a slice of life. I get back to the house and no one would suggest that anyone untidier than a pair of very devout nuns had been in the place. Gleam it doth, I think, rushing to the kitchen to get stuck in. Philomena appears and has a look at my purchase, dips a spoon in and makes a face as if she has just consumed a panini with rabid dog and sulfuric acid sauce. She asks where I bought this abomination to cuisine. When I tell her, she immediately lambastes my choice, saying that Benny could probably make better gazpacho. I choose not to tell her that this lot cost me nearly a ton. She brings out a salad that she has made and puts it on the table. This would appear to be us sharing a meal. I watch her eat and realize that there is no way I can listen to her at the same time. As the cold soup enters my mouth, my mind wanders to try and remember a moment in which I have ever been happier than this. Of course, I discount Julia from this survey and realize that all the drugs and all the drinks and all the parties mean nothing in comparison to this simple perfection. As I look up again, she is unbuttoning her shirt and soon there is salad and gazpacho all over the place as we test the durability of the work surface. I won't make you suffer, dear readers, with the details. You enjoy the cold soup and we'll hook up later. I awake to find myself alone, though I can hear her downstairs. She sounds like she is doing something, so that must be a good sign. That means she hasn't woken up and wondered what in God's name she had done wrong. She wasn't whistling but she wasn't wailing, we'll take that. I wander down in my boxes and see her in the kitchen in one of my t-shirts. This is good. I stand behind her and attempt to cut the top half but find myself settling for the bottom. The response is not one of delight, but it does seem to be a long way from repugnance. She has made some snacks and juice. How delightful. She turns and kisses me and tells me she has to go but to pick her up at 8:30. With that she is dressed and off on her scooter. How does she move so quickly? With a spring in my step I chose to further my knowledge of the fauna and flora of Malaga. The time is just before 6 and I get in a good 2 hours solid work before showering and choosing the evening's attire. I pick her up in the square near where she lives, we go to dinner, we talk, we go back to the chalet and go to bed. It's that boring. It's fantastic. Just at that vital moment we realize that a certain purchase has not been made. I run to Benny's room and am delighted to see a box on the bedside table. Inside, the box is bereft, though Benny has taken the time to write "fuck you" as that's all you'll fuck on the inside of the flap. How fucked up must someone be to go to those lengths and plan such nastiness? I find some of Zippy's, check the use by date and carry on with my business.